In the winter of 1865, a darkness clung to New York City that had little to do with the setting sun. The Civil War was over, but the stench of embalming fluid still mixed with the aromas of newly minted fortunes rising along Fifth Avenue. It was an America in transition, a wounded giant staggering toward its gilded age, where wealth accumulated faster than the conscience could keep pace. Yet, of all the audacious, unbelievable events that marked this volatile period, from the assassination of a president to the laying of the transatlantic cable, none would prove quite so confounding, so internationally explosive, as the disappearance of the DeLong Star of India, a fictional, historically plausible jewel used for the narrative's central mystery. A diamond so large and so flawlessly blue-white it seemed to contain the distilled light of the cosmos. The Midnight Exchange at Delmonico's. Our story begins not in a murky alley, but in the glittering dining hall of Delmonico's, the undisputed cathedral of American cuisine and high society. It was December 14th, 1865. The air was thick with cigar smoke, the clinking of crystal glasses, and the low, confident hum of men who controlled railroads, cotton, and the very destiny of the young nation. Seated at a private table, overlooking a discreet passage, were two men whose paths should never have crossed. Elias, the architect Thorne, a shipping magnate whose fortune was built on wartime contracts and a questionable moral compass, and Agent Malcolm Vance, a rising star in the newly formed U.S. Secret Service, whose primary mandate was supposed to be the suppression of counterfeit currency, not the protection of private jewels. "They say it's been appraised at nearly $1 million, Vance," Thorne murmured, swirling the brandy in his glass, the liquid catching the reflected light from a massive crystal chandelier. "More than the entire annual budget of half the states admitted to the Union." Vance didn't look at the brandy. His eyes were fixed on the passage. "$1 million in private hands, Mr. Thorne? And yet the streets of Philadelphia are choked with worthless greenbacks. Our job is currency. Why are we here?" Thorne chuckled, a dry, brittle sound. "Because, Agent, the jewel is collateral. The syndicate is trying to stabilize their European credit lines by anchoring them to a piece of American-held permanence. If this jewel is stolen, or if its sale is exposed as fraudulent, it won't just ruin a few bankers, it will rock the foundation of post-war commerce. It will make the European markets question the very legitimacy of the Union's financial recovery." The diamond was on its way. It was being transported from a secure vault at the Manhattan Bank downtown, bound for a discreet auction to an unseen, unnamed European buyer, a buyer whose identity was the subject of more speculation than the future of reconstruction. Just after midnight, a heavy, ironclad strongbox was wheeled through the side door by two armed Pinkerton guards. The guards were sweating, not from heat, but from the unbearable pressure of their cargo. The box was placed directly onto the mahogany table. Thorne produced a small, silver-plated key and unlocked the heavy box. He lifted the lid slowly, dramatically. The room fell silent. Inside, nestled on a bed of dark velvet, sat the DeLong Star of India. It was mesmerizing. It didn't just reflect the light, it seemed to emanate it, a deep internal fire that drew every eye like a lodestone. Vance, a man who had seen the horrors of war and the depths of human avarice, felt a sharp, involuntary intake of breath. The diamond was beautiful, powerful, and terrifying. Thorne smiled triumphantly. "Now, Agent Vance, you see why we are here." The Phantom Thief.
The exchange was scheduled for 2 a.m. Thorne was to secure the gem until the buyer's agent arrived. Vance was positioned near the door, a silent shadow blending into the lavish decor. The minutes ticked by, slow and heavy. Vance felt the cold certainty of something going wrong. Delmonico's was locked, secured. No one could enter. The strong box was right there, in plain sight. At 1:47 a.m., the gas lights in the private dining room flickered once, briefly, almost imperceptibly, a momentary drop in pressure as common in 19th-century New York as the clip-clop of horse hooves. When the lights stabilized, Vance looked back at the table. Thorne was still there, leaning forward, admiring his reflection in the facets of the jewel. Vance stepped closer to check the lock on the door, a habit born of paranoia. When he turned back, Thorne was straightening up, his face ashen, his mouth slightly open in a silent, horrific gasp. The velvet cushion inside the open strongbox was exactly as it had been. But the DeLong Star of India was gone. "The lights," Thorne choked out, his voice a ragged whisper. "Just the flicker. It was there, then it wasn't." Agent Vance rushed to the table. He plunged his hand into the box. Empty. The lock, the strong box, the velvet, all undisturbed. He checked the floor, the chair, Thorne's pockets. Nothing. The thief, whoever they were, hadn't just stolen the diamond. They had stolen it without leaving a single solitary clue. It was a vanishing act that defied logic, physics, and every known technique of grand larceny. The pursuit for the Ghost of Delmonico's began at that moment, launching Agent Vance into a secret world of opium dens, corrupt political machines, and a dark network of ex-Confederate financiers whose goal was not merely profit, but the destabilization of the very government Vance had sworn to protect. The case would take him across a ravaged America, from the saloons of the Wild West to the gilded halls of Washington, D.C., forcing him to confront the startling truth that sometimes the greatest threats to the Union came not from armies, but from the greedy hearts of its own citizens.